Good evening. Before we start, I'd want to just revisit what we have done yesterday. Any questions from any of you relating to what we have done yesterday? Anything relating to the architecture, anything relating to the database? Any questions? Were you able to look through that session again? Yeah. Raju, Omar, Anwar, Daniel, Chandra, Srinivas. I hope yes, Anwar, you could follow the session today. I will also be doing the introduction into the SAP HANA Studio. So, all right. All right. So, yesterday what we have done is the architecture of SAP HANA. All right. So today we'll try to go and understand and get a little understanding about the SAP HANA Studio, which is the interface for the SAP HANA. All right. I'm going to connect. Just give me one moment. So once you go into the Start menu, you have the SAP HANA Studio in here. So you could go and click on the SAP HANA Studio. All right. So here is the system we are connecting to it. So the first time when you are connecting to this system, you will have to add the system in here, or add the client. So you can right click on it and say add system, and then you will have to give in the host name, the instance number. If you have a description, you can give the description, and then it will add the system in here. Alright. Now what you see is basically the interface of SAP HANA. It's called the SAP HANA Studio. Okay. There are multiple areas that you can look into in this HANA Studio. We will be looking something relating to the development environment. Here, if you are connected to the system and if the system is active, you will find that there is a green light here, and it says SAP HANA Service Pack 7, but it's Service Pack 8, so this is one of the latest versions that you have. And so if you expand this particular system, you will have a few folders in here. We'll talk about each of these folders. You have backup, catalog, content, provisioning, and security. Okay, but before we actually go in here, now this has multiple windows that you will be able to log into. These are called as perspectives, and if you see here, the first perspective that we are looking here says something like quick launch. Okay, the kind of window that you are going to open, you can click on the window here, open perspective, and here you have a list of different perspectives that we can use. Alright, some might be working on Java, some might be working to debug something, some might be working on ABAP, some people might be working on BW modeling. What we are looking right now is basically SAP HANA Modeler. Alright, when you click on the SAP HANA Modeler, it will take you to a default screen called as the Quick Launch. Alright, now when you are opening the SAP HANA Studio for the first time on your individual system, so once you are given the access to the SAP HANA Studio, the first time if you open, you will be actually logging into the SAP HANA Administrator. Alright, the SAP HANA Administration Console. So that is the screen that you will be logging into. Okay, so it looks pretty much like this, and once you go into the administrator, it will show you that you could go into these links, and if you want to go into the modeler, so go in here, open perspective, and click on the SAP HANA Studio. The perspective is called as the SAP HANA Modeler. So when you click on it, it directly opens you into the quick launch. Alright. Now it is that you could have multiple systems in here. You could have one studio, and you could access development, quality, and production in the same studio. Alright. And depending on which system you're working on, you will be selecting the system here on the right side. So let's say this is your development environment. So you click on the select system here. You get to choose which system that you would be working on. Based on the system that you have clicked on here, you will be working on that system. Alright, so by default what you have here is a HANA DB system or HDB. Now these are the different folders that you have. The first one is the backup folder, and this is not directly a folder in here. You need to, in case you want to handle any backups on the system, you will be logging into this and you can run the backup. Okay, open backup console, backup the system, so you could go ahead and do that. And this is for that reason, and this is majorly something that the administrators will handle. The backup and the recovery can be handled from here. The second folder that you see here is called as the catalog. Now, I've told you that SAP HANA is majorly a database, and you will have to provide it with data. If you have looked at the SQL Management Studio, which is basically for Microsoft SQL Server, so if you click on the SQL Server Management Studio, you will find that the database has a similar arrangement. You will have databases, you will have logins and users and all that. On a similar fashion here, to create multiple schemas on the HANA database, you have the catalog. The catalog allows you to create multiple schemas in here. Each schema that you see here can be made independent from the data that you are generating from a different system. Alright, so let's say here I have something called as let's say ECC data, or let's say you have something called as DS underscore BODS, or let's say you have something here called as DXC user. Now each of this schema has data coming in from a particular system. Alright, and to keep that independent, even though it is inside the SAP HANA box, you could create a schema here and you could store the tables in here. So if I drop these schemas, you could see that let's say it's DS underscore BODS, I could see a list of all of these different folders in here: column views, EPM models, EPM query sources, functions, indexes, procedures, sequences, synonyms, tables, triggers, and views. All of these are very normal features of a database. So you'll find all of them under each of these schemas. And if you open the tables, this is where you find the data that's going to come into SAP HANA. Alright. The persistence layer at which you will find all of these tables loaded, this is called as the catalog folder. Alright. So let's say you're extracting data from ECC, and let's say you're using SLT for extraction or for replicating data from ECC at real time. So the persistence layer is here. You will create a schema in here, and then you will load the data into this. So you would name it with a particular schema name just to keep it independent of the data that's coming from a particular system. So in our case, if it's coming from ECC, you will name it something relating to ECC data or something, and that tables will be residing on the ECC system. Now, depending on the access and the authorization that you have, you can control for a user what data he can use from individual schemas. So if you do not have authorization into a particular schema, you will not be able to see the tables or the data in there, and you cannot use the tables from that schema into your model. Even though it says that you do not have authorization to it, and the model fails. Alright, so the schemas can be also linked to your authorization so that you know which schemas to use and which you don't need to use. Okay, so the catalog folder basically consists of all of that. Now here, all of the tables that you have individually can be used to create views. In SAP HANA, the tables are available, the only one layer where you can physically store data and see data, that is called as the persistence layer. From there on, what you create are models. Okay, there are just a moment. I understand there's a question here. There will be sessions on the weekend. I will be letting you know at the end of this session. All right. All right. Just to continue. So here you have. I was talking about the content folder. All right. The content folder is basically where you usually create all your models. Now, if you open the content folder, you have a lot of these symbols called as the packages. Okay, you see all of these symbols. These are called as packages. You will find a similar symbol here. Okay, when you right click, or you could say here package, a package is basically are used to group together related information objects or structuring purposes. Now, if you have worked with BW previously, it's called as info area, where you'll group all the objects. If you have worked with data services, it is called as project. A very common name is namespace. All right, a namespace basically allows you to organize your data under one big folder. So a similar naming that you have in SAP HANA, you call them as packages. All the models that you create, you could go ahead and group them under the folder called as package. When you right click on the content folder, the first option that you have is to create a package. Once you create a package, then you will have the option to create an attribute view, an analytic view, a calculation view, an analytic privilege, a procedure, and a decision table. So within a package, you could create all of these 6 different objects, and you could create multiple objects of these types. You can create any number of attribute views, any number of analytic views, any number of calculation views, any number of analytic privileges or procedures or decision tables in one in one package. So here you also have the option to create a package within a package. So let's say here you might create a package called finance. Under finance you might create smaller packages, one which says general ledger, one which says accounts payable, one which says accounts receivable. You can build individual models under each of these subfolders. Here if you see here Richard, and then you have within each of these packages, if you right click on it, the system will allow you to create a package within package, or you could create an attribute view, an analytic view, calculation view, or any of these objects. Now when you create these objects, it automatically links all of these objects that you create under one grouping name called as the package. Alright. The package is useful for many reasons. One, you can organize that all the different models that you are creating are under the same folder. Even at the time of moving of objects across from one landscape to the other, the packages will play a vital role, because you would want to go and import it the same way into your target systems as well. Alright. So at the time of landscape movement of these objects also, you will be using the packages. Okay. So the different models that you have under packages are listed here. You can create a model here and assign it to a package also. So it doesn't mean that you have to go with the package first. If you already have a package, you can open it from the attribute view. Let's say you click on create. So the system will ask you what is your package. So you will have to always link it. It becomes a mandatory field for you to link a particular object that you create into at least one of the packages. Okay. So the content folder basically allows you to group and to create all the models in here, and to group all the models into the one folder called as package, where you can group all your objects, or you can create these packages under packages. The third option here that is added from Service Pack 6 onwards is called as provisioning. When you open provisioning, there are a couple of extra provisionings apart from data services and SLT. Hi, Omar, did you get the answer? You have a question here. What is the reason of creating a package within a package? Did you get that? Or do you want me to repeat it again? Alright, so here is a question from Omar. It says, what is the reason of creating a package within a package? It's basically having the flexibility of organizing your data. Like I said, you might have one main package called as finance, alright, and under finance you might have 3 sub packages so that you could specifically hold different models under it. You might have a package called as general ledger, you might have a package called as accounts payable, you might have a third package called as accounts receivable. All of these 3 will be holding together one main package, which is the finance. So you can individually organize all your objects relating to each of the subfolders, but at the moment when you look at it, you know all of it is under finance. Alright, so it's a way of grouping your objects. So here, if you see here, you have 0A navigation, and then you have learn. Then under that you have actually created objects. So you could go into any of these levels and create these objects. So if you are creating something under this subfolder, you could right click and again create views in here. So you could go and create any number of packages under each of these packages. Now to even create these packages or to create a package under a package, you need authorization. Only if you have authorization to create these, only then you will be able to have the ability to create a package within package. If for your user you are denied those privileges, you will not be able to create a second level of packages also. Alright, so you can control the creation aspect to that level as well. Right. Omar, is that question clear? Okay, cool. Alright, I have unmuted you if you have a question.
Yeah, just want to have a quick question. So when we are migrating from one landscape to the other landscape, do we have to migrate all the package within the a master package, or can we do a sub package migration also?
You could do a sub-package migration. It depends on how you assign it to there is something here called as delivery units. Alright, so you could link it to a so you have this concept called as transports when you're using normal SAP systems. It's like how you can combine multiple transports into one transporter. Similar scenarios here. So you might want to transfer multiple packages from different areas, and all of them can be linked to delivery units, and these delivery units you can directly go and push them. So let's say here you have a package here. So I have 3 different packages that I have linked to one delivery unit, and then I can go ahead and move the whole thing across. Okay, so here you can see delivery units, manage delivery units to handle transport and packages. So you could use that to transport. So here you have different packages that you can link to your individual delivery unit. So you get to transport all of these at one shot.
Okay, and then you have to organize them on the next environment manually, or they know where to basically, or you can when you're migrating to the next landscape, then you can easily, or you can just choose
You just
where
import
you're
them;
gonna.
it'll automatically link itself.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, got it.
All right. So I was talking to you about provisioning. All right. Apart from the normal provisioning that you have, which is SLT and data services, there's this new folder that has been given since Service Pack 6. It is called the Smart Data Access. All right, Ravi Prakash. But make sure, yeah, okay. So here you have smart data access and also remote sources that you can connect to. So it is a way of accessing your databases, and this has been given since Service Pack 6, Service Pack 7 and Service Pack 8 also retain these features of having the smart data access and the remote sources, so you can connect to, let's say, a Microsoft SQL server directly from here using the remote sources, and you can bring or replicate the data into the SAP HANA database. All right. And the last one that you have is security, and this is where you will be looking at roles and also the users. Okay, so here is where you create users and you create roles and you assign these roles to the users. Depending on the roles that you have, the user will have the access into the system. So it works similar to how you have the roles and users within the SAP system. You create roles, multiple roles that you have a developer or a monitoring, modeling. So you have multiple roles that you have, and you can create your own roles and you can link that to the user. Alright. So you might be a core HANA developer, they might link your roles to the user. So the roles are created first and then they are linked to the user. Okay. Alright, so this is what you have in this particular window. Alright, but if you go into further sub windows in here, so here is where you can click on System Monitor. So when I click on the System Monitor, this will take me to where I can see my main system. Alright, I can see my alerts, I can see the data disk, the log disk, the trace disk, and this is one main level that I can look at any kinds of alerts and all that. But if I go down, meaning if I double click on the system ID, it'll take me into the system details. Okay, here I have different windows that I have. If you see this symbol here, it has actually moved me into a different uh, window in here. I have the access to all the levels of the database. I can go into the overview, just get a picture of what each of these is linked to. I get an understanding about what is the operating system that we are on. We will be able to look at the alerts. We have the option to look at the number of processes that we are using on the system, the amount of CPU usage, and the memory, all that disk usage, all that we will be able to look at in this window. You also have a lot of sub windows here. Uh, you have the landscape that you could go in. Alright, if you see here, the landscape basically consists of HANA SP7, and then here you have all the different servers that we looked at. Alright, the index server, the name server, you have statistics server. These are the three main servers. Here there is only one instance of the database, it is not a multi-instance. You have the index server, the name server, the statistics server, the preprocessor, and the access engine. Right? So here you have the script server, SAP start server, and then you also have compile server, and you also have a daemon. Right? So these are the different individual services that you have. All of them are linked to the host that you have. So if you have a multi-host system, alright, so you would find that you might see HANA SP7 dev, you might see HANA SP7 quality and HANA SP7 production, and all of them are individually, you will find them with their own host name. So if you click on the hosts here, it's because you just have one system, you will find this one system in here. But if you have multiple systems, you will find all of them listed down here. Alright. So this is basically the landscape. You get to see the alerts in here. You can configure alerts, current alerts. You can go and configure alerts that what you want. Let's say your database is filling up. You want to leave an alert saying that if it is less than some 10 GB of data that is remaining, I want to raise an alert. So in that scenario, I can set up an alert. Alright. Performance also can be viewed from here. So you could see all the logs, you could see the SQLs which are taking a longer time, all of that, your select statements that is taking longer time. So all of these you can look from here in the performance window. Okay, you can, all of these are on the HANA SP7 because that's the only system. So you have sessions, block transactions, SQL, plan cache, expensive statement trace, job progress, load. All of these are different windows that are linked to performance. You can go into volumes, log volumes, data volumes, trace volumes. All of that you can look at it from here, and we can see individually on each of these servers. So here you have the name server. Majorly what you'll be looking at is the index server. So you have the data, and you also have the log server. Configurations. So here you have a lot of INI, and these are configurations that you have. When you do your backups onto the system doesn't automatically take a backup of your configurations. You will have to manually come here and take configuration backups. All right. The data, the log, and the data backup will be done directly into the backup folder, but configurations you will have to manually back it up. System information. Right, so here you have all of these different tables. All of these are system tables, diagnosis files, and trace configurations. So all of these are in these. Once you get into the actual system, now here is the window. You started off with the system monitor, but it will take you into the next window, which basically is where you can look at through the HANA database. All right. Now here you have different folders also that you can create, filter folders, and uh, the windows that you want to close down, collapse a particular window, and all of that can be done from here. Now the perspective that you are in is the SAP HANA modeler, and you can open them like the Internet Explorer or any of our browsers here. You could open multiple sessions. You can go to quick launch on one side. You can go to system monitor one side. You can open administration in one window. So it depends on how you want to go ahead and use these perspectives. So once you go ahead and start using them, you can open multiple perspectives and you can work on multiple things as well. Alright, so here you could go and either click on window and go into each of these perspectives, or you could also have another window here, open perspective, and you can click it directly from here as well. So you have a couple of options in here to open which perspective that you want. Now I will quickly go on to the other options that you have here on the top. There is an option here called as content. Under content you have validate, activate, redeploy, mass copy, import, export, migrate, add documentation, switch ownership, and change authoring schema. Alright, so you could go ahead and do all of these properties in here. Once you have created any of these models in here, be it attribute view, analytic view, calculation view, privilege, procedure, or decision tables, you will have to validate that particular model. Alright, it has to look through a particular set of validation rules, and usually you can also control what validation you can handle by going into your individual preferences. So if you go into preferences, you will have a whole bunch of stuff that you can look at, and in this you will also have what kind of rules you want to use for the validation. Alright, if you go into the general tab, or go into SAP HANA, So you'd have validation rules as well in this particular section, and you can choose what validation you want to handle for each of the models. Alright, so if you click on validation rules, it has a whole bunch of validation rules that each model that you create. So if you're creating let's say attribute view or an analytic view, it will validate for all of these rules. Alright, what kind of join that you have created, have you created the primary key? If not, the system will fail the validation. So all of these are linked to the different kinds of validation rules that you have created, and then they will be applied to every individual model that you are trying to move in. The first level is to validate it. The second level is to activate it. All of you who have worked on SAP know that activate is an option for using that object. Within SAP environment, once you create an object, it is not just save, but you have to activate it, where the system will check for all the semantic errors that you have, and then once you activate it, that particular object will be available within your environment. Alright, so on a similar front, once you validate it, you will have to activate it. There's an option also to redeploy. Sometimes you might take a model and you might not have used it for a while, or the underlying objects might have been deleted, and you want to go ahead and redeploy from an existing file. You could use the redeploy option. If you want to copy a lot of objects at one shot, you have the option for mass copy. So you could go and click on the mass copy and import, let's say, content from a particular folder. So let's say you're using accelerators or stuff like that, or RDS. You want to do a mass copy of objects that are available. You could go ahead and do the mass copy option in here. Alright. If you want to import any of the tables, or if you want to import Excel files, or if you want to import any BW models, all of these can be done from the import option. On a general level, these are the options that you have, but if you want to specifically import something on the SAP HANA, so you can click on the SAP HANA content. You will find that you can import data from a local file, a delivery unit, a developer mode, mass import of metadata, sample applications. You could import BW models from a BW system into SAP HANA. We'll look at it when we are talking about BW and BW on top of HANA. And then you have selective import of metadata. Selective import of metadata links to data services environment for you to provision data from any different system into SAP HANA. So if you want to handle that part of it, you will have to use the SAP HANA import of selective tables and fields. So that option is also available in here. Alright. Now if you go a little further on, you have the option for exporting. Now just like how you can import objects, so let's say we have different landscapes and we want to move objects from one landscape to the other. So you want to move your models from one layer to the other. In that scenario, you could go ahead and import or export your objects from one landscape to the other. Alright, so you can go into SAP HANA content and you can move them using a transport system or a delivery unit. You could be in a developer mode or in the SAP support mode. Alright, so you could move these objects across the landscape. Just give me one moment. Alright. So for import, you have the folder called as import. For exporting objects across from your landscape, you could use the export option. You have an option here which is called as migrate. The immediate naming would understand you're migrating some code or something, but this option basically is used for migrating into different languages. Alright, so you can click on migrate and you can add it to whichever is the option that you have. So here if I add it, so here if you can see, activate selected objects after multilingual enablement. So you can move it to a language that you want to use. So if you want to use it in English, you can leave it this way. If you want to use it in French or Spanish or any other language, you can go ahead and migrate it into that language. Auto documentation, one of the most painful things after you have done a project is auto documentation, and that is available automatically. So if you click on the auto documentation, whichever is the package that you have created, you can go ahead and auto document it as a PDF file, and you can define it at a location, and you can take the entire documentation of what you've done on that particular package, the models, the procedures, decision tables, and all of that. You can take as an auto documentation. Switch ownership is the option where you can switch a particular user and a particular package into a target user. You could, by default, it usually is system. So in case you want to make a change on the user, then you could use the switch ownership option. All right. And then there is the change authoring schema. So you can click on the change authoring schema if you want to go ahead and change the authoring schema. If you have already created an authoring schema, and then you can go and individually change each table. So if you want to handle all of that in one shot, you could go ahead and do that in here. All right. This is the first window that you have in here. If you go down onto the second part of the window, what you will find here is setup, data, and help. Alright. Before we get to that, I'll talk about other windows that you have in here in this perspective. So here you have one default window called as where use list. Every object that you start creating and working on, the system will on one level keep showing you where it is used and any changes made on what are all the objects that will be affecting that change. All of it will be shown dynamically as you go into any of the objects. So let's say here I go into a content, I'd open, let's say, a SIAD package, and if I open this particular model, I'll find at the moment it's open in this particular window. I will also be looking at where this particular, let's say here, so if I open an attribute view or something, or let's say I open an analytic view, the system will keep telling me where all the different objects that I have that are used in here. So it will show me that they are used in my calculation view, in the AIG view, in the union. I am going to use this particular analytic view, and so the system will link all of them and show that if you make a change here, these are all the objects that will get affected. If you look at the bottom, you have two more windows. One is called as the properties window. In the general properties, every let's say you go into a model, this will tell you about all the properties relating to that model, who has created which package, what is the language, and activated by which, when it is created, and what is the join type, what is the direction of the join. All that information you will get in the properties tab. Alright. You can go ahead and close this tab if you think you want to increase the size of the screen in here. You can close the properties window. Now this opens up the job log, history, and progress window. So when you run a particular, let's say, an activation or a validation, those are different kinds of jobs that you create. And then when you run them, or let's say you're importing, it will always show up the job type. Let's say it's a validation, it will show validation. If it's an activation, it will show activation, the system name, the user who's activating it, and the status, whether it is completed successfully or completed with errors, or if the completed or it failed with errors. So it will show up all these statuses in here, so you would understand whether there is a failure or whether success when you're trying to use them. All right, and you can close this window. You can look at the history of your jobs, and also if there's anything running right now, you could look at progress as well. So if you close this, it's going to expand the entire studio, so you have the entire window for yourself. If you look at these, you have these small arrowheads which will allow you to close a particular screen and open a particular screen as well. Okay, so they have very tactically put them in there. Once you create your models, you have the option to validate this. You don't have to go to the quick launch and then do a validation. You can validate it from here, or you can activate it from here. These options are there. You can look at the model data preview, so you have options to look at all the data that you have created under that model, so it will link you that way. So all of these options are available in here. Okay, now let's say I close all of these windows and I have the entire thing for myself. Now suddenly I think I want to go and look at the progress. Let's say I've activated. I want to see the status of the job. How do I get back those individual windows? Now if I want the entire set of these windows to appear, you could go into the window option. There's this option which says reset perspective. So you can click on reset perspective and click yes. So it will bring back all the windows that you've closed. Alright, it bring back the properties, the various list, the job log history, progress, all of these different windows will come back again. Alright, so easiest way to bring back everything is to click on the reset perspective option here. Okay, now let's go into the second part of the quick launch that we have been looking at. As a modeler, you will be using these options more. So here, if you look at the setup option, the first one is manage preferences. So you can click on manage preferences and you can select basically what are your preferences as an individual user. Alright, you can restore default as well. If not, you can apply the changes. Whether what kind of, how much data preview you want, how should the flow of these connecting lines be. All of these you can go and select here in the manage preferences. Now we know that there are two major systems that you will be connecting for replication engines. One is data services and the other one is SLT. Now for you to go ahead and link it with data services, you will have the configure import server option in here. So if you click on it, you can link it to a particular data services repository, the server address on which the data services system is available, and the repository name into which you will actually link, and the default port is given in here. But apart from that, the ODBC data source connection is optional. If you want, you could define that, or if not, you could leave it alone. Alright, so you could go ahead and configure the import server in there. There are delivery units. You can create your own delivery units as well, or you can use a few of the system delivery units and link your different packages to the delivery units. You have also schema mapping that you could do. So this is the authoring schema and this is the physical schema. This is what you will get when you are trying to actually change the authoring schema. So you can do your schema mapping here. data you have generate time data, which is basically used for creating your time dimension. So if you click on generate time data, it allows you to create the calendar type as Gregorian calendar or fiscal calendar. So you could open that and you can go to the level of granularity that you want, to the level of a second. Alright. If you want to use the fiscal, you could use that and also go all the way to the variant that is defined in individual uh, fiscal variant. Generally, we will use only the Gregorian. If you're using BW system, you use fiscal. So you can click on generate, and this will generate all the time dimension tables on one of the schemas here called as the system schemas. So if you go all the way down, you'll find a few system schemas which are defined by underscore sys underscore. So these are all system schemas. So let me show you. So here you have underscore sys underscore bi as the time dimension schema. If you open this, you will have a lot of tables relating to time and time dimension. Alright, all of these are created here in the underscore sys underscore bi. You have underscore sys underscore bic where you have all the models stored, underscore sys underscore data provisioning, underscore sys underscore EPM where you're creating models, underscore sys underscore repo for authorization. So there are multiple system schemas that are there. It is better not to go ahead and create anything there manually, but you could create, but these are all linked to all the objects that you have in your main interface, which is the studio. So after the generate time data, you have data provisioning. I told you here there is data services as one of the provisioning layers. The other one is the SLT. So when you click on data provisioning, the system links this directly to the SLT server. So if you click on it, so here you have JDBC issue, but yeah. So here is the source system. It is connected to EH7. The target schema is EHP7 data. But what you have here is you are connected to the SLT. So the easiest option is to click on load. You could choose the table that you want and you can directly go ahead and log in. The reason I have the SAP database text JDBC invalid schema name is because there is a different schema name that is defined here on each of this system. Just a moment. Alright, so here you have the data load management. You could replicate, you can stop a replication, you can suspend a replication, resume it, or you can define jobs. All of this is linked to the SLT system. Now the SLT system basically is on another instance here. If you go in here, you find that there is an SLT system, but this interface is directly linked into the SAP HANA data provisioning tab. So you could access all the SLT stuff from here. There's a lot of SQL that you might be using here in SAP HANA. So there's a SQL console. It's basically an editor where you define all your SQL commands. Even if you want to create a new schema, this is where you will have to define it. Alright. So let's say we have to create a schema here called as create schema, and we want to give our schema name as HANA underscore SAPT. You could go ahead and activate it. So we are creating a schema for ourselves called as HANA underscore September. Now if I go ahead and refresh this particular system, if you go into the catalog, so you can see here HANA underscore SAPT schema is created. So you can load your tables here and then you can start using them in the models. or in case you want to define, sometimes the system fails a particular model. This is because of some authorization. So you can go and handle that using the SQL console. Alright. So the final option here is documentation. So in case you need any help, you can click on the documentation link here. This will take you to a lot of options into SDN's or SAP sites, or the features and all of that. You could directly link with that. Alright, so these are basically an overview about this interface that you have in here. Okay, so this is basically the different tabs that you have. Now, I know this might be a little fast, but we're going to look at each of these individual options as we go along. We will start creating models. We will learn how to import data into individual schemas, how to load specifically data into the schema that we have created from an external system. So all of these options we will understand within the SAP HANA Studio. Okay. Any questions? Any of you? Srinivas, Raju, Omar, Anwar, Daniel, Chandra, any questions relating to the studio interface, you could ask me. All right. Okay. So can we meet at 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. EST? Tomorrow 10 a.m. EST, is that a possibility, you guys? Okay, if it is 11, can we all meet? Alright guys, let me discuss it with the organizers and with you, and then see if it is yeah, it'll be weekdays evening classes only. I was, again, up to you guys. If none of you are available, then it's fine. Uh, let's see, I will discuss this with the organizers once again, and then see, since we have missed out some content on previous weeks. Just to make it up, I am trying to schedule some sessions on the weekend so that we can cover quite some uh, content on that. Alright, so anyways, I will send you, or we will send you an email if there's anything scheduled. Alright, yeah, so that's it for today's evening. I will see you around on the weekend, or if we do not have any sessions, then we'll see you on Monday. Alright, alright guys, so take care, have a nice evening, have a nice weekend. Hope you are able to follow what we are doing in these sessions. In case you missed on something, or if you think something is not clear, you could leave a post on the site, or you could contact me through the organizers, and we could discuss about it. Alright, take care and have a nice evening. I will see you around. Bye guys.